Managing student behavior is a challenge, regardless of the setting, but managing scores of children while driving a 13-ton vehicle presents a challenge not everyone can handle successfully. On top of that, there's a rising concern about school violence and the safety of our students and employees. There is hope and movement to turn around the staggering rise of youth violence. As educators, we refuse to feel hopeless, and it's not in our collective or personal nature to feel hopeless. As we learn more strategies in student discipline, we take yet another step in the process to detect and prevent school violence. On February 11, 1988, while working at a Florida high school as an assistant principal, Dr. Nancy Blackwelder, a fellow administrator and a teacher, fell victim to 2 gun-wielding students, which rocked the educational community. After her recovery, she recognized the need to evaluate school districts' training programs and use the knowledge gained through her experience to help other educators. Dr. Blackwelder is an articulate speaker with experience as a teacher and as an assistant principal at both the elementary and high school levels, an assistant director of transportation, and an administrator in the special needs student education department. Tomorrow, we hope that you'll return to your jobs and use the strategies you learned today and feel that powerful sense of assurance that comes when you know you have the tools in place to ensure that your buses and schools are safe and happy havens for everyone.
I'm Nancy Blackwelder, and as a former teacher and assistant principal at both the elementary and the high school levels, and as a director of transportation in a very large school district of over 100,000 students, 140 some odd schools, over 600 school bus routes, I realized that when I came from the instructional side of the house to the supported services side of the house, that the vast majority of training that we did for school bus drivers was how to drive the truck. And we gave them precious little, if any, information on how to deal with children. Now, it's no surprise to you that dealing with children is half the battle. So I have developed some instructional training for bus drivers because I just don't think it's fair to send somebody out on the street with a bunch of kids without giving them the tools they need to be successful in that environment. It's like handing them the torch of education flame first. So this instructional series that I'm going to produce is all about how drivers get into trouble. We want to get that bus environment to such a state that our drivers have the best chance of staying out of trouble. This is what we will cover in Program 4. Failing to curtail bullying, angry parents boarding the bus, and student fights on the bus. Bullying has become such an issue these days, with youngsters committing suicide because of harassment and snapping, which results in homicide. It is such a problem that states have developed laws addressing how school districts should deal with the issue. Trouble brews when we fail to curtail bullying. Here's our first headline. Bus driver was attacked by a mother and her 12-year-old daughter because her son was being bullied on the bus. Here's our driver in her statement. I remember the last thing that I heard was, "So now you see how it feels." She grabs a hold of my ankle and I go down on the bus. How I go down on that bus, I can't tell you. I mean, at the point from there to me getting up off the ground, I was unconscious. Here's our second headline. A dad loses his cool and threatens his daughter's alleged bullies on the bus.
When 42-year-old James Jones bonded out of jail, he said he is at fault for storming onto a Sanford school bus.
A mistake, I made that mistake. I'm trying to pay for that. Please, don't worry about my daughter. That's all I'm worried about.
Jones told investigators he was sticking up for his daughter when other students at Greenwood Lakes Middle School were picking on her. Here's how he chose to do it.
Yo, everybody sit down. Everybody sit down. Show me which one. Show me which one.
Jones was looking for the students he says put open condoms on his daughter's head, smacked her on the back of her head, twisted her ear, and were rude. His daughter points him in the right direction.
This is my daughter, and I will kill a about her.
So what happened? Well, Jones confronted the middle school students he says had been bullying his daughter, who has cerebral palsy, by taunting, hitting, even throwing condoms at her. He boarded the bus, ordered his 11-year-old daughter to point out her alleged tormentors, and proceeded to threaten the boys and the driver. Here's our second headline. Portage bus driver charged with felony child neglect after allegedly doing nothing to stop 3 boys from terrorizing female students on his route. So what happened in this situation? Well, Birch allegedly did nothing when the 3 boys, 2 17-year-olds and a 16-year-old, threatened Birch and others, exposing their genitals on the bus, exposing their buttocks to passing motorists, igniting a flammable body spray on the bus, and creating other disruptions. One girl who claims to have been repeatedly groped on the bus told officers she reported the abuse to Birch more than once. So a Porter County jury deliberated for less than an hour before finding Birch not guilty. After a school district investigation, a transportation supervisor resigned after information surfaced that the office was notified at least twice that the boys were harassing other students on the bus. There are court cases in educational harassment. Davis versus Monroe County Board of Education and Murrell versus School District Number 1 found that schools were assigned liability for peer-to-peer harassment if the plaintiffs sufficiently demonstrated that the administration's response showed deliberate indifference to actual knowledge of discrimination. So schools are largely insulated from lawsuit unless they have been told of the problem and did nothing. So what can drivers do to prevent bullying and harassment? Well, maintain a warm, positive interest and involvement on the part of the adults. Establish and enforce firm limits on unacceptable behavior. Consistently apply sanctions when norms against bullying are violated. Send a clear message that bullying will not be tolerated. Adults need to be authority figures and act responsibly when confronted with the issues of bullying. Watch, monitor, and when necessary, intervene. So how do you deal with a bullying incident? Well, first of all, you stop the immediate abuse. You express relief that the bullying is out in the open. You help the bully change his or her behavior. And you support the victim. One thing that I found in the past, when there was a bullying incident, we had the tendency to talk with the bad guy. Explain to them how hurtful it is, what the rules are against it, the consequences should they continue to do it. But how much time did we spend with the victim? Well, it's my notion that the victim, because they're out of control, if they could control the situation, the bullying would not be occurring. And so they feel about this big. And I believe we need to spend as much time with the victim as we do with the bully in trying to help that victim not continue to be a victim over and over again. There are generally some behaviors that allow the bullying to continue. And so we need to spend equal times working with the bully and trying to change their behavior as well as with the victim in changing theirs. Identify what has happened. Make peer group feel responsible in helping the victim. Here's another thing that they have determined that 80% of the kids do not engage in bullying activities. And yet, in their silence, sort of give tacit approval to the behavior. If we can convince that 80% of the student body to not tolerate bullying behaviors, I believe we can make a dent in the problem of bullying. Talk separately to the bully and victims and document the incident. So how do you document suspected harassment? Well, you need to take down all the particulars, the name, the age, the national origin, sex, disability status, as it's relevant to the victims and the harassers. You need to have the names of witnesses. You need to have a description of the incident and its severity, when and where the incident occurred, the relationship of the incident to other incidences of harassment, the names of personnel conducting the investigation, and the findings or corrective actions. So what is considered documentation? Well, a referral to the principal is one. You can write a note to a parent and keep a copy of it. Or you could make notations on a calendar, because not every bullying incident is going to end up as a referral to the principal or note to the parent. Just making a note in your calendar that you spoke to the kid about the incident is documentation. So what can you do when an angry parent boards the bus? Techniques of verbal control and withdrawal are discussed to avert confrontations on the road and redirect them to a controlled situation at the school. Here's our first headline. A mother attacks a student on a school bus because she thinks the other student is harassing her daughter.
In Florida, an ugly school bus fight, but even more shocking, one of the people involved was a student's mother. CBS News correspondent Mark Strassman reports.
On a Florida school bus, some racial name-calling suddenly got even uglier. 3 girls started fighting, 2 of them beating up a student named Cassandra Ross. The bus driver never jumped in to break it up. Then it really got out of hand. The mother of one of the girls came aboard and joined the brawl. For nearly 2 minutes, she punched Cassandra Ross, choked her, and hit her time and again. This is what the girl's neck looked like. And finally, as the mother walked off the bus, she threatened to kill Cassandra.
I was scared, but I don't know. It all happened really quick.
Rita Gooden, the mother in the fight, was originally arrested for attempted murder, but she'll be sentenced for simple battery, a misdemeanor, outraging the victim's mother.
She choked my daughter until her neck was bleeding, and I'm outraged that she's being charged with simple assault. There was nothing simple about it. She tried to kill my child, and that's what she should be charged with.
Gooden, the mother in the fight, could face a year in jail and a $1,000 fine. Other parents have to wonder what their kids may be facing every time they get on a school bus. Mark Strassman, CBS News, Atlanta.
So could it have been prevented? Was there a point where the altercation could have been de-escalated? Could the driver have prevented the parent from boarding the bus? What should the driver have done once the mother boarded the bus? Intervention at the name-calling stage may have stopped the escalation. When the fight started, the bus was already stopped. The driver could have closed the door, preventing anyone else boarding. She could have set the brake, pulled the keys, released her seatbelt, called dispatch, and turned to address the combatants. Once the mother entered the fray, the driver should have called a supervisor for police assistance and attempted to verbally de-escalate. Here's our next headline. Caught on tape, mother attacks school bus driver.
And she had like a list in her hand.
At first they was just yelling at each other, then she grabbed her and started punching her. When we know that it was a real fight is when both of their glasses flew off the bus.
The kids who saw it describe an absolute mess. Everyone screaming and yelling as the only adults on the bus came to blows.
And the bus said it was rocking back and forth, back and forth.
The neighbor who shot this cell phone video tells us you're seeing the moments just after the fighting.
This is crazy, saying you're beating up an older lady.
He says the younger woman, identified by police as Shani Edmond, apparently attacked the driver while they argued over her daughter's stop. Edmond's been arrested for assault and battery and trespassing on the bus.
We was really, really shaky when we got home.
The kids on board tell us they escaped the chaos by running out the back door and all the way home.
So what happened? The mother of a student has been arrested accused of attacking a bus driver on board her daughter's bus. Neighbors say the bus was heading home when the mother stormed the vehicle, irate over an issue with her daughter's stop. Could it have been prevented? Is there anything you can do to de-escalate the situation? Once the mother was on the bus, was there anything the driver could have done to de-escalate the situation? Well, we don't have enough information to know what conversations were held in the past that alienated the parent. If, as the witnesses stated, the mother stormed the vehicle, likely there was no time to react and cause the mother to stay off the bus. Once the mother was off the bus, the driver reacted and closed the door, preventing further hostility. So there are a couple ways in dealing with parents that possibly can help to de-escalate the situation. One of the techniques is called the paradox or the unexpected. In a confrontation, people tend to get defensive, so do just the opposite. Here's an example. Parent, would you please come down and talk to me for a moment? I prefer that the children not hear what we have to say. Well, obviously the driver's not getting out of their seat and would say, I can't leave my seat. Can you come around to the window so that we can talk privately? Once that happens, then you can say, how can I help you today? Well, the parent may be very angry, even a hint of madness. The question is, how are you going to help yourself? The driver says, I don't know what you mean. Well, if you're going to drive this bus, you better start by getting a clue about what's going on, what those little brats are doing. The driver's going to come up with another what question. What have the children done that upset you? The parent may just ignore that question and continue. If you can't control them, I'm going to call your supervisor and they can get someone out here who can manage the children. This is where you come in with the paradox or the unexpected. Well, I think that may be a good idea. My supervisor would want to know if I'm not doing a good job with the kids. Maybe we should all get together and talk about what's going on. The parent may be taken back because they're expecting you to defend yourself. And you did just the opposite. Well, I don't have a lot of time, but I want you to keep a better eye on the kids who are bothering my son. Ah, now we're getting closer to the problem. Mrs. Williams, how have they been bothering Jason? Well, yesterday. There may be times when drivers find themselves unable to resolve a confrontation and must direct the parent to leave the bus. Step 1 is to give a clear directive. Mr. Jones, please step off the bus. Step 2, state the expectation. Mr. Jones, you are expected to step off the bus. Step 3 is state the consequences. If you fail to step off the bus, then you'll have to talk to a police officer. In step 4, present the choice. It looks like you have a decision to make. You can choose to talk to a police officer, or you can step off the bus and you and I can talk about it and decide what to do. So here's an example of how that may look. Here comes the parent. You listen here, my daughter is being harassed and bullied by 3 boys on this bus. Mr. Jones, please step off the bus so we can talk. Look here, no one's going to keep me from protecting my child. You have no right. State the expectation. Mr. Jones, you are expected to step off the bus. Well, and you're expected to get out of my way and not interfere with my family. Driver states the consequence. If you fail to step off the bus, you'll have to talk to a police officer. Parent comes back, you people are pathetic. You have no idea what's happening here. Present the choice. It looks like you have a decision to make, and you're right, you don't have to leave. And you'll have to talk to a police officer. Or you can step off the bus and you and I can talk about what's going on and decide what to do. And then break eye contact. There are times when it's not reasonable to let the parent continue to talk with you at all. Here are the 3 steps. State the fact that the conversation is not going to be continued right now. Give a reason for not continuing the conversation right now. And state the conditions for continuing the conversation at a later date. At this point, the driver needs to break eye contact with the parent. So here's how it may sound. Ma'am, I'm not going to discuss it with you further right now, because this is very upsetting for the children. But I would be more than willing to speak with you at the school when I have finished my run. What is your responsibility when a fight breaks out on your bus? How should drivers and assistants break up fights on the bus without getting hurt themselves? What are your responsibilities when you are told of a pending fight at the bus stop? Let's examine this issue so that you have the best chance of acting appropriately and staying out of trouble. Here's your first headline: Boy's brutal beating caught on tape. Well, what happened in this situation is the victim, a 12-year-old, a student at this middle school, was sitting in the front row seat of the bus when several boys approached him. The video reveals that more than 30 punches were thrown by the main instigator. The other boys laughed and punched the child as well. Because the bus driver allegedly failed to react when the beating began, the driver has been put on administrative leave without pay, pending the outcome of the investigation. Here's another headline: Bus driver on administrative leave while officials investigate why the driver did not stop or intervene when a student from Bellevue West was attacked twice over a period of several minutes.
A brutal beating on a school bus, leaving 2 teens in jail and a community asking why it occurred. The 17-year-old victim was punched, kicked, and choked. Other riders on that school bus cheered as the attackers raged on. Even more disturbing, that assault, captured on the bus surveillance camera, was completely unprovoked. Inez Ferre has our report.
Watch this surveillance video closely as the 17-year-old boy attempts to sit down on a school bus seat. Belleville, Illinois police say he's told he can't sit there, but he does anyway. He's then taunted by some of his peers and violently beaten, not once, but twice. Many of the kids around the fight are cheering it on. One student snaps a cell phone picture. A Belleville police captain initially said he thought that based on the video, race was a factor in the beating. The 2 suspects are black. The victim is white. Today, he backtracked on the comment, saying he'll let detectives examine the evidence.
So what happened? Well, at least twice, students refused to let the 17-year-old sit down with them. The teen finally knocked another student's book bag onto the floor, and that student attacked. There were 2 attacks over a period of several minutes, yet the bus driver never stopped or intervened. A spokesperson for First Student says the driver radioed the incident to dispatch and stopped the bus at the first safe location. Pressed on the lengthy period of time, the driver claimed he was unable to find a safe stopping point. Well, what would you do? If the fight went on for several minutes with a break between assaults, was there something verbally the driver could have done to avoid the second assault if there was indeed no place to pull over? Well, the driver's first obligation when there is a situation with mutual combat is to the safety of all the other students. The driver should indeed look for a safe place to pull over. We don't know enough about the route to know if there was no place to pull over for the 6 or 7 minutes that the attack took place. Once the attack paused, however, the driver could have instructed the victim to move to the front of the bus so the second attack would not occur. How about this headline? 5 students suspended from school for vicious fight on the bus. The bus driver is on administrative leave with pay pending an investigation. So what happened? A high school girl smacked the boy behind her because he put something in her hair. He hit her back and 3 other girls joined in an attack on the girl. Although it seemed like a long time, the attack only lasted 33 seconds before the driver found a safe place to pull over and address the situation. So what should you do if you have a fight break out on your bus? Well, the first thing that you want to do is provide verbal intervention. Holler out, "Stop fighting! Hey there, what are you doing?" The second thing you need to do is radio for assistance. Let dispatch know what's going on your bus. Then you need to find a safe place to pull off the road. You need to set the brake, pull the keys, release the seatbelt, and turn to address the situation. Then, once again, you need to provide verbal intervention. Stop fighting now. Stop what you're doing. Don't put yourself at risk for injury. Do not ask another student to intervene. I don't have a problem with kids volunteering to assist, but if you instruct a kid to assist and they get hurt, then you have put a child in harm's way. And past that, do what a prudent adult would do. If you have a situation, somebody is in a fetal position, getting stomped, it looks like they're in danger of death if you don't intervene, you may make the choice as a prudent adult to physically do something to stop the assault. But the vast majority of mutual combat fights don't last any more than 45 seconds to a minute. So in large part, verbal intervention will get you what you want. Here's another headline. Student attacked with metal pipe said school administrators did nothing to help. Well, what happened in this situation? There was this freshman at the high school said that he begged 2 principals at his school and his bus driver for help. At the end of the school day, Martin said he rode the bus home. The group threatening Martin was riding the same bus. Martin said he told the bus driver, but nothing happened. The teen said the group ran after him as he got off the bus. They have placed Martin's bus driver on administrative leave with pay pending the outcome of the investigation. The district is also reviewing the actions of an assistant principal. So what would you do? Did the driver have to let the boy off the bus at his bus stop? Should the driver have spoken to the assailants before they got off the bus? Should the driver have contacted the supervisor or principal to get assistance? Well, it's perfectly fine to keep the potential victim on the bus and let the offenders off at their stop. Have the student contact their parents for assistance, contact the school for assistance, notify Transportation Administration of the problem and the steps you've taken, and ask for assistance.